Intimate Portrait Ava Gardner. At 8, it's Unsolved Mysteries, now at a new time. Then Jo Beth Williams and Brian Dennehy star in Final Appeal at 9.
Next on Intimate Portrait, hosted by Meredith Vieira.
I'm Meredith Vieira, and this is an intimate portrait of Ava Gardner. In Hollywood, where glamour is celebrated on and off the silver screen, Ava Gardner was the toast of the town. Her sultry good looks and magnetic aura took Ava from a small country town in North Carolina to the fast life of Hollywood. She loved the parties, the nightlife, and her new career. She dated and married some of the biggest names in Hollywood. But in the end, there was only one true love. Here's actress Stephanie Powers with the tomboy-turned-glamour queen, Ava Gardner.
In the golden age of Hollywood glamour, Ava Gardner was a goddess. Her striking beauty drove men wild, everyone from movie stars to matadors. Billionaire Howard Hughes was so obsessed with Ava, he tried to control her with physical force. Ava hit Mr. Hughes so hard, he needed stitches. But the tables turned on Ava with volatile actor George C. Scott. Although she married 3 times, she considered only one her true love, Frank Sinatra. Their relationship was a passionate roller coaster ride of breakups and makeups. She starred with a who's who of the silver screen. But Ava's unscripted, unconventional private life was more exciting than any Hollywood role she ever played. I'm Stephanie Powers. Next, an intimate portrait of my friend, Ava Gardner, a lusty legend. On a chilly Christmas Eve in 1922, a North Carolina farmer's wife gave birth to the last of her 7 children. The baby girl was a midlife surprise for 39-year-old Molly Gardner and her husband Jonas. The Gardners named their baby Ava Lavinia. She was born in a farmhouse surrounded by tobacco fields in a place so small it wasn't even on a state map. The locals called the bump in the road Grabtown.
I'm sitting now where Ava was born, and this is smack in the middle of Grabtown. She insisted she was born in Grabtown, North Carolina, which was true, but this was never a town. This is it. This is Grabtown, and this is pretty much what it looked like in Ava's day.
As the baby and the youngest of 5 daughters, Ava was always the center of attention.
She had a very close-knit family, very close to her mother especially, and always felt, it was one of those things where the mother and the father's rule was law. Born in the 20s, it was many generations ago, and the family was incredibly important to her throughout her entire life.
The Gardners lived without electricity, indoor plumbing, or paved roads. Country children seldom wore shoes in those days, and that suited Ava just fine.
Ava's childhood playmates recalled she always went barefoot, climbed the trees, climbed the water tower, ran through the fields, and she never played with dolls. She just wasn't interested in dolls. She was a real tomboy.
Ava's first memory was when the family's barn and cotton gin burned down, which meant that Jonas could no longer farm. The Gardners had to move down the road to another tiny town called Brogden, where Ava's mother could run a boarding house for teachers. Molly Gardner served up 3 square meals a day, something Ava insisted on all her life.
The fried chicken, I guess, was probably one of the most popular things at the house, and and she just loved grits, all these turnip greens, all the good solid foods of the South. She liked that.
Molly Gardner was a movie fan, so she began taking little Ava on trips to Smithfield, a real town with a real movie theater.
They had to go over about 8 miles of pure country dirt road. dust in the summer, mud after rain. But they made this wonderful journey into town to the Howe Theater.
When Ava was 10, her mother took her to see Clark Gable and Jean Harlow in a movie called Red Dust. Gable was Molly's favorite star, and Ava decided that he was hers too. It was the height of the Great Depression. School officials had to close the boarding house for teachers. A friend of Molly's told her about another boarding house she could run near a shipyard. It was in Newport News, Virginia, only 100 miles from Brogdon, but to Ava, it was another planet.
It was not Johnston County, North Carolina. And the children up there may have talked just a little bit more cosmopolitan than she did, and when they laughed at her accent, it was a harmful thing for a 13-year-old girl.
This was not the happiest time of her life. She was leaving home, actually, in her early childhood, and leaving much of her family behind. She was becoming a teenager at this time. And then her father died.
It was a harsh blow for a young teenager. But Ava had inherited from both parents a capacity to cope. When Ava was around 15, she and Molly returned to North Carolina so her widowed mother could run yet another boarding house. Ava was then able to be reunited with some of her childhood friends.
The old gang just kind of fell back against the wall because the girl that stepped out of the car was not the one they remembered. This girl had become Ava Gardner.
The kids used to hang out at a local lake where they'd dance to the music of Artie Shaw and Frank Sinatra on the jukebox. One evening, Ava's cousin took her there.
Suddenly everyone stopped dancing. And we looked over the door, and there was this lovely girl with Fred Gardner. So immediately the boys started lining up to dance with Ava. And there was a long line of boys, and you couldn't get but one turn with her.
Moki became a trusted friend, advising Ava on which boys were known to get fresh. Ava was expected to live up to her mother's Victorian ideals.
When Ava started dating, the porch light would certainly go on when they hit the porch. And my grandmother would be close behind the door. She did run a tight ship.
After high school, Ava went to secretarial school. She got a lift there every day with one of Molly's boarders. Ava paid the lady back by taking care of her baby, Dewey.
She was really fond of children and just a great babysitter because she took good care. She knew what to do. Just instinctive, I guess. Just knew how to handle a baby.
Even though Ava was a whiz at secretarial school, she always assumed marriage and children would be her real career, as it was for her mother and 3 of her sisters. But the 4th and oldest sister, Beatrice, nicknamed Bappy, was a different story. Bappy was 19 years older than Ava, and she marched to a different drummer.
Bappy was divorced at an early age and left this area and went to work in New York at a department store, and divorce at that time was pretty much unheard of in the rural South.
In the summer of 1939, Bappy invited Ava to visit her in New York City. Molly wasn't so sure that her 16-and-a-half-year-old baby was old enough. Bappy insisted. Ava begged. Molly relented.
Bappy had married a man named Larry Tarr, who was a photographer, a portrait photographer, and naturally he took a look at Ava. He wanted to take her picture.
She had on a picture hat. It was 1939. Gone with the Wind had just come out, and she had a kind of Scarlett O'Hara look.
Once during Ava's visit, Bappy and Larry spotted actor Henry Fonda. They urged Ava to ask for his autograph. As Fonda complied, a lady with him told Ava, "You're a lovely little girl. You should go to Hollywood." Ava smiled shyly, knowing that the only place she was going was back home to North Carolina. As she left New York, Ava had no idea that her brother-in-law planned to put the hat photo in his shop window. But what could possibly happen just because a picture is in a window? Ava Gardner and Intimate Portrait will return.
Intimate Portrait is sponsored by Degree, the body heat activated antiperspirant.
We perform in cabaret. I'm Rosie. I'm Lulu.
And I'm anyone you want me to be.
It's hot.
This show's
Cabaret
very
is
sexy.
a hot,
Cabaret is a
sexy
hot show.
Live theater. Anything can happen.
No predictability.
Well, they asked us to try this Degree Invisible Solid Body Heat Activated.
Your body temperature goes up, it goes down, it goes up and down, and Degree stuck with me. I loved it.
No white marks, nothing. So they're looking at me and my flawless performance. We need this. Degree Invisible Solid. Slick und clean und clear.
Yes.
Make every day good to the last drop.
I've just fallen in love with a shampoo.
Nutrivi from L'Oreal Paris. Nutriceramide finds and fixes the damaged areas. The result? Up to 40% less breakage. My hair is soft, shiny, and resilient. Nutrivi from L'Oreal Paris. And I'm worth it.
Why choose Transitions lenses?
L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. D is very, very extraordinary. E is even more what you adore.
Transitions lenses, the choice for comfort, UV protection, and the versatility of a variable tint that changes as the light changes. The choice you'll love. Call 1-877-4-TRANSITIONS.
I have to be ready. I have to commit to doing it. I have to take control and take charge of my own life.
Ask your doctor about Meridia or call 1-888-4-Meridia.
I'm ready.
At 15, she became the youngest woman ever to join the U.S. national soccer team. At 24, she helped the U.S. bring home Olympic gold. At 27, she broke the international scoring record for both men and women. Then won the 1999 World Cup Championship. At any age, she has never been afraid to chase her dreams. Mia Hamm, a hero on the field and off. What about you? Go for it. Be your own hero.
Kodak Max Film. It's all you need to know about film.
With Kodak Picture Maker, I can blow this up to an 8x10. Wow, that's great. Crop in a little here. Red eye out. What a cute couple. I like this guy. Oh, it's him. We both made the same picture.
Kodak Picture Maker makes any size reprints easy. No negatives or experience necessary. Call for the Kodak Picture Maker nearest you.
I'm Stephanie Powers. We now return to Ava Gardner, An Intimate Portrait. Returning to North Carolina, Ava, now almost 17, settled into secretarial school. Back in New York City, a messenger for Lowe's Theaters strolled past Larry Tarr's studio on 5th Avenue at 63rd Street.
He saw this girl's picture in the window, and since he was looking for a Saturday night date, he thought, I'll try to get her telephone number. So he went in and told Bappy that he'd like to have the phone number of that girl in the window, that he was a talent scout.
The young man was no talent scout, and he didn't get the date. But he did know the right people at MGM in New York. Larry Tarr sent them several photos of Ava, and she was offered a screen test. But instead of being thrilled, Ava was irritated that Larry would display her picture without permission.
We think all movie stars started out starstruck. She was not starstruck in the sense that this is what I want to do. She was just, well, do I have to do this?
When she went in for her screen test in New York, and they said, what's your name? And she said, Ava Gardner. And they said, and why do you want to be an actress? And she said, I don't.
Since Ava's accent was so heavy, the MGM people in New York decided to do this silent screen test to send to California.
One of the executives sent word back. She can't sing, she can't dance, she can't act, she can't speak. She's terrific. Get her out here.
18-year-old Ava was offered a standard MGM contract, $50 a week for 7 years. Molly agreed to it on the condition that Bappy accompany Ava to Hollywood and live there as her chaperone.
Bappy was a very major influence on Ava. She was probably like her surrogate mother. I don't know that Ava really would have made it on her own if it hadn't been for Bappy. In fact, I imagine she would have been home in a heartbeat if it hadn't been for Bappy.
Ava and Bappy arrived in Los Angeles in August of 1941. They rented a small, cheap apartment. Ava rode the bus to MGM, the Harvard of Hollywood studios, where she was molded by the best hair, makeup, drama, and diction experts in the business.
They took away her Southern accent. You know, it's just gone, just like magic. But there were things that she wouldn't allow. They wanted to change her eyebrows, and she just would not allow that, and they wanted her to eat less.
Not only did Ava's eyebrows stay defiantly unplucked, she continued to eat 3 big meals a day and never gained an ounce. Within weeks of arriving at MGM, Ava was given a newcomer's tour to watch Mickey Rooney film a production number. Rooney was 2 years older and 3 inches shorter than Ava, but he was the biggest thing in pictures.
He was Clint Eastwood, he was Julia Roberts, he was everyone rolled into one. He was the biggest star in Hollywood. And Ava met him on the set of one of his movies where he was doing a Carmen Miranda takeoff. He was wearing a big headdress and a dress and lipstick, and he was in drag, basically.
I was introduced to Ava after I finished the scene, and I asked her for her phone number, and she wouldn't give it to me. And then I asked again, and she wouldn't give it to me, and I asked again, and she finally gave in.
Even though Ava was the little girl from Grabtown, a complete unknown, Mickey had to jump through hoops to get a date. He barraged Ava with calls and cards and kindnesses.
I dropped by to pick her up and take her to the studio myself. Sure. I heard that she was taking the bus, so I said, well, Ava, I'll pick you up and take you to the studio, and I did.
As a big star, Rooney had a big reputation with the ladies, but Ava's upbringing kept her from being just another conquest.
These were Ava's words. I married him because he wanted to get in my britches, and I wasn't going to let him in there until we married.
I fell madly in love with Ava the first night I went out with her. And sooner or later, I asked her to marry me. And Ava said, no, she wouldn't have no part of that. And it was just like the phone number. I kept after her, will you? And won't, I won't. Will you? I won't. And finally, she gave in and said, I will.
In January of 1942, a barely 19-year-old Ava Gardner married 21-year-old Mickey Rooney in a top-secret ceremony. Ava had been in Hollywood only 5 months.
Ava and I would like to thank everybody for their many good wishes, and especially our boss, Mr. Louis B. Mayer. Thank you very much.
But the newlyweds soon had problems. Ava wanted to stay at home and play house, but Mickey was no homebody.
He was out playing golf, he was out partying. He just didn't seem to think that being married was supposed to put an end to anything. This was not the way she was raised. This was not what she wanted in a husband or in a marriage.
We'd have a couple of drinks, and we'd go dancing. And if she'd see me talking to somebody else, she'd get up and leave me. And I'd have to run after her. So there was a lot of jealousy there on Ava's part.
When Mickey went out alone, Ava got even by stepping out with her friend, Lana Turner, who was newly divorced from band leader Artie Shaw.
And she had an awfully fiery temper. You had to watch out what you said around her. And Bappy told me that. And I wished I'd have listened to her, Bappy, more.
In May of 1943, only 16 months after a wedding ring inscribed "Love Forever" was slipped on her finger, Ava was divorced. The very next day, Molly Gardner died.
This whole thing must have seemed like a real fiasco to her, that it had disintegrated so fast. I think at that moment, with her marriage collapsing and her mother dying, she must have felt that it was, coming out here was in some ways a mistake.
Saddened that Hollywood and all it stood for had kept her away during Molly's final days, Ava rushed home to North Carolina for her mother's funeral. She wondered if she shouldn't just stay there and never go back. Ava Gardner, an intimate portrait, will continue.
Tomorrow night at 7.
I went from being Steven Spielberg's girlfriend to his wife to Max's mother.
Lifetime's Intimate Portrait. Tomorrow night, Amy Irving.
28 miles a month on foot, 593 pounds lifted weekly, and the weight of the world held here every day. The person behind these heroic feats is you. The average American woman does all this and still has the strength to move the 93 muscles required to laugh out loud. Be your own hero. You're already ours.
In life, it's okay to be aggressive, as long as you're smart about it. I take the same approach in investing. My advisor suggested a mix of Oppenheimer funds for all my goals.
Oppenheimer funds, the right way to invest.
More teas with the Duchess of York. More house calls. More encounters with the creature from the Black Lagoon. For him to get more out of life, feed him nutrition that makes a difference, like Iams Hairball Care Formula. Complete nutrition with more effective fiber for more relief from hairballs. Not to mention, more happily ever afters. Nutrition that makes a difference. Iams, good for life.
You ever gonna get that present to Sue?
Yeah, soon.
You ever gonna get that present to Sue?
You gonna pose for me now?
The new Kodak Advantix camera. So sleek, so small.
What are you doing here? So,
So easy.
this is a great camera. Did you know that I wanted one of these for my birthday?
The toughest part is giving it away.
But now if you buy an eligible Kodak Advantix camera, Kodak will send a free Advantix camera to anyone you choose.
Hey, can't you just throw those in the dryer?
You can if your dryer's not broken. Again.
Well, during Sears Laundry Spectacular, you can save on all our most popular washers and dryers, like a Kenmore or Whirlpool Super Capacity Washer for just $288.
I'm impressed.
And with your Sears card, you'll get 0% finance charge till January 2001 on any washer or dryer over $399. What's more, Sears will deliver it for free. So, what do you think?
I can hang this up.
Finally. Better hurry. Offer ends Saturday. Sears, the good life at a great price, guaranteed.
Make every day good to the last drop.
Some toys never go out of style. Same goes for investing. The Oppenheimer Main Street Growth and Income Fund is a classic because it's performed well over the long term.
Oppenheimer funds, the right way to invest.
I'm Stephanie Powers. We now return to Ava Gardner, An Intimate Portrait. Ava's fantasy was to turn her back on her fledgling movie career, but the reality was that she was under contract. Following her mother's funeral in 1943, Ava returned to Hollywood and changed her homebody ways. She started stepping out more than staying in.
Ava used to say that she thought she was a night owl because she was born at 10 p.m., that she came into the world at night, and that was the time that she was most comfortable with. She did not want to be only a night owl and just live to party. But I think this was partly a reaction to the sadness of her divorce and her mother's death.
In the 1940s, it was frowned on for a woman to go out at night unescorted. It was considered wild if she kicked off her shoes in public and danced. Ava did both.
She could party hard, but if Ava had to work, she could get herself together and go to work. I doubt if she was ever late for work.
After 2 years of walk-on parts with little or no dialogue, Ava finally got a decent role in a B picture, Ghosts on the Loose.
Well, I'd like to very much, Daddy, but...
Well, it's all right, darling. We're not going out there tonight anyway.
Not going to our new house, but, Jack, why not?
She and Bappy were walking around in downtown Los Angeles, and for some reason they passed a theater and it said Ava Gardner in Ghosts on the Loose, and these big letters on the marquee, and she just, it probably was the only time she ever got excited about being a movie star. For some reason, it so surprised her, and it was so unexpected, and it was there in front of her. She just got a kick out of it.
Ava had some light-hearted dates with Errol Flynn, Fernando Lamas, and Peter Lawford. But then a man entered her life who was larger than life. His name was Howard Hughes.
I suppose it'll be fair today, but I've been in a awful rush to get away from here, and I hope you'll forgive me.
He really became obsessed with her, fixated on her, fascinated with her. He was very persistent. Ava said no to him all kinds of ways, all kinds of times over many, many years, but he always came back. He could not forget her.
After only a few dates, the famous billionaire began using private detectives to keep tabs on Ava, as he'd done with other young starlets. But Ava would have none of it.
And even though there was an attraction between them, there was also this kind of real clash, because he had a control and she would not be controlled. And this was always, always, always a problem.
He could be vicious. He was going to hit her once with the lamp, but I walked in at that split second and he had the lamp drawn back and everything. And when I saw it, I said, and he turned around and looked and set the lamp down.
Once Hughes did strike Ava. Infuriated, she grabbed a paperweight, a bronze bell, and hit him back, knocking out 2 teeth and gashing his face.
There was no bigger no-no in her book than getting physical with her, than hitting her, and as it should be, but she really, because she was a hot-tempered person also, instead of saying you shouldn't have done that, she clobbered him with a bell, which is, you know, not necessarily, was certainly not the reaction Howard Hughes had hoped for. Really, he had to be hospitalized. You really put him away.
A month later, Hughes called Ava as though nothing had ever happened. She began dating him again, but Ava ended it when she met and fell for band leader Artie Shaw.
Artie Shaw? Who's Artie Shaw?
Artie Shaw was a big band legend, handsome and famous enough to play himself on the silver screen. Back in North Carolina, Ava used to love Artie's music, and now she loved Artie.
Artie and Ava lived together before they were married, and this was something that wasn't done generally in those days, so this was really troubling to the studios to have someone living out of have a major star living out of wedlock. Would have been a major, major scandal, so the studio put pressure on Ava to get married.
I didn't think we should be married, but she thought maybe we could work it out. The night before we got married, we knew we shouldn't, but it was too late. Couldn't back out anymore.
Shaw had already been married twice. Once to Ava's friend, Lana Turner. In October of 1945, Ava became the third Mrs. Artie Shaw. Artie was 35, Ava not quite 23.
She was a little kid. She was like playful. So she said, let me paint your toenails. I said, oh, Ava, you're being nuts. She said, no, let me do it. I'll have fun. I said, okay, go ahead. So I took off my shoes. We sat down in my library, and she started doing that. About then, the doorbell rang, and it turned out to be one of the agents around. And he saw this happening. The next day, it was in the Hollywood press that I had made her paint my toenails.
Ava was married to Artie when she finally got her big break in Whistle Stop with George Raft.
Maybe I came back for you, you chump.
Ava's sultry portrayal of a basically good girl in Whistle Stop led to her sultry portrayal of a basically bad girl in The Killers, co-starring with Burt Lancaster in his screen debut.
You touch me and you will live till morning.
I walked around the first few years at MGM with my mouth open. I mean, you know, it was like, and that is exactly what happened the first time I saw Ava Gardner. She was such a natural beauty that she oozed sensuality, and without trying.
Ava's career had taken off, but her marriage was strained. Artie was a well-read intellectual. The only book Ava had ever read was Gone with the Wind. Despite taking classes at UCLA, Ava felt inadequate around Artie.
She was basically a little Tar Heel girl from the Carolinas, daughter of a sharecropper. And she came to Hollywood, and they made her into some kind of queen. She couldn't handle it.
At Artie's urging, Ava began reading Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. But Ava got sidetracked by a risque bestseller called Forever Amber.
And Artie finds this book, and he just is horrified, and he throws a tantrum, and he throws the book across the room, and he says, you know, this is not the kind of stuff I want you to be reading. And, you know, the capstone to the story is that one of his future wives is the author of Forever Amber.
The Ava-Artie marriage was over 1 year and 1 week after it began. Howard Hughes called the instant his spies reported that 24-year-old Ava was suddenly single again.
He was always buying gifts, huge diamonds and all this. And of course, Ava, having been a poor girl, could care less about it. She just wanted to be happy, wanted to do her thing. So she wanted that complete freedom. With Howard Hughes, there is no such thing as complete freedom.
Ava continued to see Hughes, but another Howard was also in her life, actor Howard Duff. Ava was in no mood for commitment, and the fun-loving Duff obliged. Ava's next film signified her arrival on Hollywood's A-list. She was cast opposite her childhood idol, Clark Gable, in The Hucksters.
He took her on as a little sister, and she took him as a brother. And they were good friends. And of course, Ava could outdrink the average person, outcurse the average person. And Clark Gable liked women that could stand up to him, you know.
Although still close to Bappy, in 1947, Ava hired Maureen Jordan, who would become like another sister. Ava nicknamed her Reenie. Reenie would live, work, and travel with Ava for the next 40 years.
Ava was not color conscious at all. So you were either nice or you were not nice. You were rich or you were not rich. With Ava, it was all the same.
After breaking up with Howard Duff, Ava had a brief, top-secret affair with actor Robert Taylor, whose marriage to Barbara Stanwyck was on the rocks. And she almost had an affair with another co-star, Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum was a major flirt. He liked to flirt with his co-stars. Ava really liked him. She enjoyed flirting with him. She enjoyed having fun together. She thought of going to bed with him, but it never happened. And Ava thinks that part of the reason it never happened is that Robert Mitchum didn't want it to happen.
Mitchum was married, but so was the next man to enter Ava's life. His name was Frank Sinatra. And loving Frank would land Ava in a huge front-page scandal. Ava Gardner, An Intimate Portrait will continue.
Intimate Portrait is sponsored by Claritin.
It's another beautiful day.
I'm walking on sunshine.
Don't lose it to seasonal allergies. Take control.
And don't it feel good?
Talk to your doctor about Claritin. Just one Claritin tablet daily brings you 24 hours of non-drowsy relief from seasonal allergy symptoms. Claritin has a low occurrence of side effects such as headache, drowsiness, fatigue, and dry mouth, similar to sugar pill.
Walking on sunshine.
Don't lose a single day. Take clear control. Take Claritin.
Congratulations! You finally made it.
Thanks.
So, you got your whole life ahead of you. What are you gonna do now?
Well, thought about working. Looked into retirement. Looks good. Gonna play a little canasta, shuffleboard, golf, eat a little shellfish, salsa Saturdays, bingo Mondays. I'm retiring.
Want a step you can really skip? New Cascade Complete helps you skip scrubbing and rinsing. Finally, skip the sink, because food's dissolved away.
Where'd you get that sweater vest?
New from Cascade. Cascade Complete. Skip the sink.
The Spot Lifter is Bissell's wash it down, lift it up, get on with your life, cordless deep cleaner. Bissell, we mean clean.
I give all of myself to my art. When I paint, my skin is my palette. My canvas is my world.
My body is my brush.
Some things we may never understand. Some things we should.
At ReliaStar, we help you understand the complex world of investments and insurance so you can make the right financial choices. ReliaStar.
You've never seen power like this before. The Dirt Devil Vision. It's loaded with power you can see. The Vision is lightweight with swivel casters so it turns on a dime. It easily picks up dirt other vacuums can leave behind. And instead of bags, the Vision vacuums dirt into an easy-to-empty container. The Dirt Devil Vision. Nothing escapes the power of a Dirt Devil.
Murder or self-defense. Only one man cares enough to find the truth.
I want to hear why you shot and killed your husband.
Jo Beth Williams, Brian Dennehy, Final Appeal.
Tonight at 9 on Lifetime.
See, this place is even better than when I rented it. That's always been there. That was there when I moved in. Oh, you've been there since day one.
Moving isn't easy, and setting up your utilities, phone, and cable used to be one of the biggest hassles. But with MakeTheMove.com, what took hours now takes minutes. Log on, tell us what services you want to transfer, and we'll do the rest. It's free and fast, so you can focus on other moving issues.
Is that your dog?
MakeTheMove.com. We'll hook you up.
NARS is your swing savings headquarters. Save on a great selection of Hedstrom swing sets starting at just $89.99. Your kids will love the Legend set with lawn swing and 8-foot slide, $229. While the kids play, relax in outdoor furniture from Cardinal Home Products. This glider or swing is the perfect place to enjoy a warm spring day. On sale, just $69.99. Spring into savings at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
I'm Stephanie Powers. We now return to Ava Gardner, An Intimate Portrait. Ava quickly forgot about her flirtation with Robert Mitchum. She was about to begin a tempestuous affair with someone she'd known slightly for several years. His name was Frank Sinatra.
And we have a squeal with each orchid, ladies and gentlemen.
She loved his music as she loved Artie Shaw's music, and she first meets Sinatra soon after she gets involved with Mickey Rooney, and he makes some kind of comment like, well, I wish I'd met you first, you know, as if that would have made all the difference. And there's a kind of cockiness about that I think, you know, Ava's always ambivalent about men like that. She seems to not like them, but then she's drawn to them.
Sinatra was also married, Catholic, and the father of 3 children. Once the idol of teenage Bobby Soxers, Sinatra's career was faltering when 27-year-old Ava and Frank got reacquainted at a party in Palm Springs in late 1949. Well-meaning friends tried to warn Ava that Frank, or Francis as Ava always called him, would never leave his wife and children. Lana Turner confessed to Ava that she had had an affair with Frank a few years earlier, and that he broke up with her when Lana pushed Sinatra to get a divorce. Howard Hughes gave Ava a dossier of Sinatra's misdeeds, but it was too late. Ava was in love.
We had code names, and Sinatra's name was Dr. Francis. So on the middle of a set, she could say, Renee, as soon as we get to the hotel, I want to place a call to Dr. Francis.
Code names and secrecy worked for a while, but the affair soon became a scandal instead of a secret. Ava started showing up at Frank's concerts. She'd storm off if he looked at another woman. He'd needle her about Howard Hughes. They'd fight, make up, fight some more.
There was great passion there. There obviously was great passion. And they created headlines, you know, if they burped. It was a headline. Ava burped.
Once Ava and Frank even had a fight on the telephone while staying in the same hotel in New York.
And all of a sudden, Ava hears this gunshot, and she thinks that Frank has shot himself. And she rushes, you know, she's distraught, she's beside herself, she rushes down the hall, she rushes into his suite, and he's just like, fired the gun into the mattress. Now she's really furious with him, she really lays into him, and this is the kind of relationship they had. They loved each other, but they drove each other crazy.
Humiliated, Frank's wife, Nancy, chose Valentine's Day 1950 to publicly announce a separation, but not a divorce, from her wayward husband. Leaving the country for the first time to make a movie, Ava went to Spain. She was enchanted with Spain. A young matador in the movie was enchanted with Ava, infuriating Frank. Nancy Sinatra Sr. kept hoping her husband would come to his senses. But where Ava was concerned, Frank never did.
I believe he made a statement, I can't get her out of my plasma. And I think of that and think, oh my God, the intensity of that love, the depth of that, the sexiness on both their parts, the independence. It's awesome.
After a tempestuous 2-year affair, Ava and Frank Sinatra married in late 1951. Ava's career was soaring with movies like Showboat and The Snows of Kilimanjaro. Financially devastated by his divorce, Frank had to grab small budget pictures.
At a midnight film preview, Frank Sinatra heads a list of celebrities, including his new wife, Ava Gardner, and Robert Q. Lewis. The showing of Universal International's Meet Danny Wilson, in which Frankie stars, is attended by Milton Berle, who gets in a little fast work with the new bride. The cameraman...
In the summer of 1952, Ava was offered a role with strong personal meaning.
Mogambo, the new word in motion picture entertainment. Ava Gardner, more beautiful and more exciting than you've ever seen her.
Mogambo was a remake of Red Dust, the movie that made Ava idolize Clark Gable when she was a child. In the new version, Ava would play the Jean Harlow role, and Gable would again play the hero.
London Airport, where Frankie and Ava were sweethearts. Yes, it's Frank Sinatra and his wife, Ava Gardner, making a call on Britain. The couple who've captured the hearts of so many screen fans were to spend a day in London before flying on to Kenya, where Ava is going to make a film.
Tagging along while Ava was on location wasn't exactly what Frank had in mind. For months, he'd been trying to land a part in From Here to Eternity. Ava even pleaded with the head of the studio to give Frank a screen test, but the answer was no. Nearly broke and dejected, Frank accompanied Ava to Africa, where Ava soon learned that she was pregnant.
She's delighted to be pregnant, but it's the wrong time, it's the wrong place. If she pulls out of the picture, you know, there'll be penalty clauses, it'll cost her a lot of money. It's a big role for her. She's not really sure that this is the right time to start raising a family. Frank's situation is still precarious, and she ends up going to London and having an abortion.
Frank didn't know about Ava's abortion. He'd returned to Hollywood when his screen test unexpectedly came through.
Well, in 1953, From Here to Eternity comes out. Sinatra had gotten the role, and this was really turned his entire career around. He gives a great performance. He gets nominated for an Academy Award. His whole career gets back on track in a major way, and it never gets unrailed after that.
In a real-life twist worthy of a Hollywood script, Ava was also nominated that year for Mogambo. On Oscar night 1953, Ava and Frank were on 2 different continents. Ava was filming The Barefoot Contessa in Italy and was passed over as Best Actress. Frank attended the awards with his children and was triumphant as Best Supporting Actor.
The winner is Frank Sinatra.
She said that when he got back on top after his Academy Award for From Here to Eternity, he became a kind of a different person then. And that's when things began to fall apart with them.
Even though the marriage had unraveled, Ava told everyone how overjoyed she was for Francis. Eventually, Ava and Frank got a divorce, but they never got over one another.
They were a classic case of they couldn't live together and they couldn't live apart. I think she really she was always in touch with Frank. I mean, I think that relationship, to kind of use a romance novel cliche, the embers really never died in that relationship. There was always something there. And I think that probably, in some sense, kept her away from marrying again.
She wore that wedding ring. Last time we saw her, she had that wedding. She still had it on. Just the band. Just not the diamond, but just the band. She did. She really loved him.
They all worshiped the face, the fame, the figure of the world's most beautiful ever.
Ava hated the Hollywood hype about her beauty. In fact, she was loving Europe and hating Hollywood more and more. so Ava decided to take a long break in Spain. She met yet another dashing bullfighter and this time fell in love. The bullfighter was so famous, he needed only one name. Dominguín soon introduced Ava to a friend of his, Ernest Hemingway.
He liked talking, and I think that is what they were attracted to one another. And of course, when it came to bullfighting, that was both of, Hemingway and Ava's great subjects on bullfights. They could sit up and talk about bullfighting for hours.
Ava loved everything about Spain. The music, the food, the flamenco, the bullfights. Her relationship with Dominguín was blossoming. Ava wondered what would happen to her career if she moved to Spain permanently. Ava Gardner, An Intimate Portrait, will return.
Feeling like a little fish in a big pond? Come to Petco for everything you need, from ornaments, to plants, to pumps, to fish food, to fish. Petco, where the pets go. Got your free Petco Pals card? It's the way to save at Petco. Petco Pals members save $1 on 14.5-ounce cans of Wardley Pond 10 food sticks and save 10% on all Pond Plus artificial pond plants. Petco, where the pets go.
Buying a carpet deep cleaner can be confusing. You may think they have steam or heat the water, but in fact they don't. Presenting the Bissell Pro Heat, the only upright deep cleaner with a built-in heater to heat the water. See the light? The heat is on, making the hot tap water up to 25 degrees hotter for maximum cleaning performance. The Bissell Pro Heat. See the light? Bissell. We mean clean.
Lonely, hi Mr. Lonely.
Now Whisk will not only clean your laundry, but also help reduce wrinkles, so you iron less.
I'm so lonely.
Introducing Whisk with Wrinkle Reducer, the first and only laundry detergent specially formulated to help reduce wrinkles. Whisk. Do it once, do it right, do it less.
Why choose Transitions lenses?
L is for the way you look at me. O is for the only one I see. B is very, very extraordinary. E is even more of what you adore.
Transitions lenses, the choice for comfort, UV protection, and the versatility of a variable tint that changes as the light changes. The choice you'll love. Call 1-877-4-TRANSITIONS.
Why is it models always look 15? Wrinkles? Talk to her in about 20 years.
At the Ponds Institute, we don't give you hype, just results. Our age-defying lotion is proven to visibly reduce fine lines by up to 77%. Age-defying lotion, no hype, just younger-looking skin.
Make every day good to the last drop.
I've just fallen in love with a shampoo.
Nutrivive from L'Oréal Paris. Nutriceramide finds and fixes the damaged areas. The result? Up to 40% less breakage. My hair is soft, shiny, and resilient. Nutrivive from L'Oréal Paris. And I'm worth it.
The Dirt Devil Vision with swivel casters is loaded with power you can see. And instead of bags, it vacuums dirt into an easy-to-empty container. The Vision from Dirt Devil.
They thought they committed the perfect crimes, only they didn't know you were watching. Tune to Lifetime's Unsolved Mysteries and help crack the cases no one else could. Tuesday through Friday at 8, only on Lifetime, and maybe you can help solve a mystery. I'm Stephanie Powers. We now return to Ava Gardner, An Intimate Portrait. In December of 1955, just before her 33rd birthday, Ava and Renee took a leap of faith and moved to Spain.
Young women in Spain seem to be going in for bullfighting. And among the spectators is American screen star Ava Gardner. Of course, this
Ava immersed herself in the country with the help of her bullfighter boyfriend, Dominguin.
Ava would go for months and months and only speak Spanish. And then but when she'd come back here, she would, I always thought it was funny, she'd say, yo quisiera a drink. I said, what? And she'd do sentences half in English, and we'd have to deprogram her.
Ava's flamenco parties in Spain were legendary for being loud and long. One elderly neighbor often called the police, once complaining that the ruckus nearly made a funeral urn fall from the mantel.
The neighbor turns out to be Juan Perón, who was the exiled dictator of Argentina. He's upset that his wife's ashes are being disturbed by all this rowdy behavior, and it's Evita Perón whose ashes Ava is kind of disturbing.
By now, Ava's life seemed lifted from a Hemingway novel. She was the beautiful, restless American abroad. Appropriately enough, in 1957, Ava starred in her third Hemingway adaptation, The Sun Also Rises.
When I think of the hell I've put people through, I'm paying for it all now.
After a few years, Ava and Dominguin parted amicably. Ava continued to be one of Madrid's most famous residents, but she often felt the need to slip away to visit the place and the people she'd left so long ago.
I asked her how she felt about being home in Smithfield in Johnson County. And she said all she wanted to do was go lie out in the backyard under the pines at her brother's house and just listen to the birds and the quiet and the peace. She said, I feel so safe here.
Ava always worked to live, not the other way around. So in 1964, director John Huston knew he'd have to make a pilgrimage to Madrid to convince Ava to be in The Night of the Iguana.
What's statutory rape? I've never known what that was.
That's when a man is seduced by a girl under 20.
Elizabeth Taylor wasn't in the film, but she accompanied her lover Richard Burton to Mexico. Every morning, the cast and crew caught a boat to the set. Ava went over on water skis. Although Ava was a decade older, Elizabeth Taylor said, Ava Gardner is more beautiful than I am.
One night, the night of the iguana.
Iguana gave 42-year-old Ava some of the best reviews of her career. Her next film was again with John Huston, The Bible. Ava immediately liked her charming co-star, George C. Scott. Soon, Ava and Scott were more than just friends.
He did not drink to get happy as Ava did. He drank, who knows why he drank, but the result was that he was, a lot of anger and hostility came out. He was, by her account, very, very violent towards her. There were beatings, there was a lot of very, very bad stuff that went on.
John Huston had said to me, Renee, watch him at all times. He's a killer. And it's true. He was a killer. Yeah, he was very, very abusive.
Once on a weekend in the country with Scott, a terrified Ava called Renee, then abruptly hung up.
I called Sinatra and told him what was going on. And I was just hysterical. I was crying and carrying on. And I said, I know he's gonna kill her. So he said, well, where are they? And I said, in Connecticut, but I don't know where. He said, don't worry. Sinatra said, don't worry, Renee. I'll see that you get her.
Ava was back 2 hours later.
She had been beaten and bruised and beaten, and so I don't know how they got her. But when Frank said, Sinatra said, don't worry, I'll get her, I knew then that he would get her.
After over a decade living in Spain, Ava, now 46, moved to London in 1968. Her film parts got smaller and less frequent. She was often seen walking her 2 small dogs, treating them like the children she never had.
It was a little lonely. She was away from home, away from family, but then she did enjoy her privacy in London. They certainly gave her a lot of respect as far as her privacy. And I think she was basically happy.
In 1985, Ava was lured back to Hollywood for a recurring role in Knots Landing. The primetime hit was shot at the old MGM studios, where Ava used to go by bus more than 40 years earlier.
As luck would have it, I was sharing a makeup trailer with her, and at 7 a.m. in the morning, the door flies open. There stands Ava Gardner, the great Ava Gardner, in a man's shirt, khaki pants, a bra, no makeup, not a speck of makeup. And suddenly she takes off this man's shirt. There's her bra. She ties the man's shirt in front of her so it's like a smock in front of her, the sleeves tied in back. And she plops down in the chair and says, "Let's get to work."
Ava's on-screen husband was her former off-screen lover, Howard Duff. The producers wanted to expand her role, but Ava said she missed her dogs in London. In 1986, Ava had a stroke, leaving her left arm paralyzed.
I think that she was kind of bemused at aging. I think she was not the high-strung person to go crazy and get plastic surgery. She just took what life handed out. She was not a complainer. She was not a whiner. She was not someone who said, "Oh, why is this happening to me?" She coped with everything that happened.
1 month after her 67th birthday in January of 1990, Ava died quietly from chronic lung disease and the lingering effects of her earlier stroke.
She loved to live. She wasn't afraid to live her life. She wasn't afraid to reach for things for her life. And she had a ball.
She could play the role. Whatever they scripted for her to do, she would do. But at heart, she was always that little farm girl from eastern North Carolina.
Ava Lavinia Gardner was buried in the family plot near Grabtown in Smithfield, North Carolina. The largest flower arrangement at her funeral came with a simple card. It read, "With my love, Frances."
You can return home. You can come back home, and this was her wishes. And without a lot of grandeur, she wanted no shrines
Ultimate Portrait Ava Gardner. At 8, it's Unsolved Mysteries, now at a new time. Then Jo Beth Williams and Brian Dennehy star in Final Appeal at 9.
Next on Intimate Portrait, hosted by Meredith Vieira.
I'm Meredith Vieira, and this is an intimate portrait of Ava Gardner. In Hollywood, where glamour is celebrated on and off the silver screen, Ava Gardner was the toast of the town. Her sultry good looks and magnetic aura took Ava from a small country town in North Carolina to the fast life of Hollywood. She loved the parties, the nightlife, and her new career. She dated and married some of the biggest names in Hollywood. But in the end, there was only one true love. Here's actress Stephanie Powers with the tomboy-turned-glamour queen, Ava Gardner.
In the golden age of Hollywood glamour, Ava Gardner was a goddess. Her striking beauty drove men wild, everyone from movie stars to matadors. Billionaire Howard Hughes was so obsessed with Ava, he tried to control her with physical force. Ava hit Mr. Hughes so hard, he needed stitches. But the tables turned on Ava with volatile actor George C. Scott. Although she married 3 times, she considered only one her true love, Frank Sinatra. Their relationship was a passionate roller coaster ride of breakups and makeups. She starred with the who's who of the silver screen. But Ava's unscripted, unconventional private life was more exciting than any Hollywood role she ever played. I'm Stephanie Powers. Next, an intimate portrait of my friend, Ava Gardner, a lusty legend, by taking care of her baby, Dewey.
She was really fond of children and just a great babysitter because she took good care. She knew what to do. Just instinctive, I guess. Just knew how to handle a baby.
Even though Ava was a whiz at secretarial school, she always assumed marriage and children would be her real career, as it was for her mother and 3 of her sisters. But the fourth and oldest sister, Beatrice, nicknamed Bappy, was a different story. Bappy was 19 years older than Ava, and she marched to a different drummer.
Bappy was divorced at an early age and left this area and went to work in New York at a department store, and divorce at that time was pretty much unheard of in the rural South.
In the summer of 1939, Bappy invited Ava to visit her in New York City. Molly wasn't so sure that her 16-and-a-half-year-old baby was old enough. Bappy insisted. Ava begged. Molly relented.
Bappy had married a man named Larry Tarr, who was a photographer, a portrait photographer, and naturally he took a look at Ava. He wanted to take her picture.
She had on a picture hat. It was 1939. Gone with the Wind had just come out, and she had a kind of Scarlett O'Hara look.
Once during Ava's visit, Bappy and Larry spotted actor Henry Fonda. They urged Ava to ask for his autograph. As Fonda complied, a lady with him told Ava, "You're a lovely little girl. You should go to Hollywood." Ava smiled shyly, knowing that the only place she was going was back home to North Carolina. As she left New York, Ava had no idea that her brother-in-law planned to put the hat photo in his shop window. But what could possibly happen just because a picture...
Recall that she always went barefoot, climbed the trees, climbed the water tower, ran through the fields, and she never played with dolls. She just wasn't interested in dolls. She was a real tomboy.
Ava's first memory was when the family's barn and cotton gin burned down, which meant that Jonas could no longer farm. The Gardners had to move down the road to another tiny town called Brogden, where Ava's mother could run a boarding house for teachers. Molly Gardner served up 3 square meals a day, something Ava insisted on all her life.
The fried chicken, I guess, was probably one of the most popular things at the house, and and she just loved grits, all these turnip greens, all the good solid foods of the South. She liked that.
Molly Gardner was a movie fan, so she began taking little Ava on trips to Smithfield, a real town with a real movie theater.
They had to go over about 8 miles of pure country dirt road. Dust in the summer, mud after rain. But they made this wonderful journey into town to the Howe Theater.
When Ava was 10, her mother took her to see Clark Gable and Jean Harlow in a movie called Red Dust. Gable was Molly's favorite star, and Ava decided that he was hers, too. It was the height of the Great Depression. School officials had to close the boarding house for teachers. A friend of Molly's told her about another boarding house she could run near a shipyard. It was in Newport News, Virginia, only 100 miles from Brogden, but to Ava, it was another planet.
It was not Johnston County, North Carolina. And the children up there may have talked just a little bit more cosmopolitan than she did, and when...
On a chilly Christmas Eve in 1922, a North Carolina farmer's wife gave birth to the last of her 7 children. The baby girl was a midlife surprise for 39-year-old Molly Gardner and her husband Jonas. The Gardners named their baby Ava Lavinia. She was born in a farmhouse surrounded by tobacco fields in a place so small it wasn't even on a state map. The locals called the bump in the road Grabtown.
I'm sitting now where Ava was born, and this is smack in the middle of Grabtown. She insisted she was born in Grabtown, North Carolina, which was true, but this was never a town. This is it. This is Grabtown, and this is pretty much what it looked like in Ava's day.
As the baby and the youngest of 5 daughters, Ava was always the center of attention.
She had a very close-knit family, very close to her mother especially, and always felt, it was one of those things where the mother and the father's rule was law. Born in the 20s, it was many generations ago, and the family was incredibly important to her throughout her entire life.
The Gardners lived without electricity, indoor plumbing, or paved roads. Country children seldom wore shoes in those days, and that suited Ava just fine.
Ava's childhood playmates, they laughed at her accent. It was a harmful thing for a 13-year-old girl.
This was not the happiest time of her life. She was leaving home, actually, in her early childhood, and leaving much of her family behind. She was becoming a teenager at this time. And then her father died.
It was a harsh blow for a young teenager. But Ava had inherited from both parents a capacity to cope. When Ava was around 15, she and Molly returned to North Carolina so her widowed mother could run yet another boarding house. Ava was then able to be reunited with some of her childhood friends.
The old gang just kind of fell back against the wall because the girl that stepped out of the car was not the one they remembered. This girl had become Ava Gardner.
The kids used to hang out at a local lake where they'd dance to the music of Artie Shaw and Frank Sinatra on the jukebox. One evening, Ava's cousin took her there.
Suddenly everyone stopped dancing. And we looked over the door, and there was this lovely girl with Fred Gardner. So immediately the boys started lining up to dance with Ava. And there was a long line of boys, and you couldn't get but one turn with her.
Moki became a trusted friend, advising Ava on which boys were known to get fresh. Ava was expected to live up to her mother's Victorian ideals.
When Ava started dating, the porch light would certainly go on when they hit the porch. And my grandmother would be close behind the door. She did run a tight ship.
After high school, Ava went to secretarial school. She got a lift there every day with one of Molly's boarders. Ava paid the lady back by